Ostracized over my inheritance, I sought peace but faced humiliation. Furious, I cut off my sister's rent, exposing my parents' manipulation. I arrived for a family meal, but they remarked, "We weren't expecting you." "Go away, loser," I replied. "Okay. But from now on, you'll be paying my sister's rent." They begged, but it was too late. I did not want to go at first. Why would I, given what had happened in the previous years? But something inside me didn't want to hold the hatred forever. My father was turning 57, and while I wasn't their favorite person, I figured I could be the larger man and at least show up. Things had gotten awful ever since I acquired my grandfather's estate. Grandpa and I were close. I spent a lot of time with him while growing up. He was often telling me stories about his early troubles, how he had to fight for all he has. I believe he saw something of himself in me, which is why he left me a large sum of money when he died. This decision did not sit well with either my parents or my sister Olivia. They were outraged that Grandpa had not left them anything, as if it were my fault or something. I attempted to explain that I had nothing to do with it, but they would not listen. After that, nothing remained the same. They treated me as an alien, as if I had stolen from them. They were frigid at family gatherings. Sometimes they didn't even invite me. I maintained my distance, but this time I decided to try and make things better. I purchased a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey, the costly variety he only drank on exceptional occasions. I even bought him a box of gourmet cigars. Maybe I was stupid to believe that a few nice gifts would change everything, but I had to try. When I arrived at her place, Olivia answered the door. She was the one person who had not fully shut me off. We weren't very tight, but we kept in touch here and there. "Hey, Jeffrey," she said, slightly astonished. "I didn't know you were coming." "Yeah," I responded. "I thought I'd show up for Dad's birthday." She paused for a moment before shrugging and letting me in. As I came into the living room, I noticed a group of family sitting talking and laughing. For a little while, everything seemed normal. But then, I saw my parents. My mother's face became paler, and my father's attitude stiffened. The room became quiet. "You," my father growled. "What are you doing here?" I tried to remain cool. "I came to wish you a happy birthday. I brought some presents." He scoffed. "We didn't invite you." My mom shook her head. "Why are you even here? You always bring trouble. Just leave." I could feel my patience running out. I'd come here to make peace. And this was the reaction I received? I glanced around at the other family. They were uncomfortable, as if they were seeing something they weren't allowed to. "Look," I remarked, maintaining an even tone. "I'm not here to fight. I just wanted to celebrate with you." My father snorted. "Celebrate? You're nothing but a loser. You think a few gifts will make up for everything?" That struck a nerve. All those years of being treated as dirt, as if I didn't belong, came flooding back. I clenched my jaw, hoping to keep it together. But then my father pushed it further. "Get out, Jeffrey," he instructed. "We don't want you here." And that was all? Something inside of me cracked. "Fine," I replied, my voice frigid. "I'll go. But guess what? I've been paying Olivia's rent all this time because you couldn't be bothered to help her. Not anymore. That's on you now." Their expressions froze. It was as if they hadn't expected me to advocate for myself. My mother suddenly hurried forward. "Wait, Jeffrey?" "No," I interrupted. "I'm done. You don't want me here? Fine. But you'll regret this." I turned and walked out, leaving the home completely silent. As I approached my car, I could hear them cry from the front door, imploring me to stop. But I did not glance back. I got in and sped away, fury rising in my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to be their punching bag longer. The following morning, my phone burst. Olivia had called me 6 times, left 3 voicemails, and sent numerous texts. I ignored her at first, I needed some distance to clear my mind after what occurred last night. But curiosity got the best of me, so I listened to one of the voicemails. Jeffrey, it's Olivia. What the hell is going on? Mom and Dad are freaking out, saying you cut me off. They're blaming me for everything. Call me back. I grumbled and threw my phone onto the bed. Of course, they blamed her. When things went wrong, they were usually the first to blame others. I still felt horrible for Olivia. It wasn't actually her fault. I had been assisting her with her rent for the past 2 years, because our parents refused to aid her when she was in need. But I was not going to let them guilt me into continuing, especially after how they treated me. Olivia arrived at my apartment approximately an hour later. She did not even knock. She simply barged in. Jeffrey, what the hell have you been doing? She asked. Good to see you too, I murmured, crossing my arms. I'm serious, she snapped. Dad called all the relatives and told them you threw a tantrum at the party. Now half the family is pissed at me because they think I'm the reason you stopped paying my rent. I raised an eyebrow. Wait, what? He told them that? Yeah, she replied, throwing up her hands. They say I must have sided with you against them or something. Uncle Mark called me this morning and asked if I was plotting with you. It's crazy. This was new. I had not anticipated the rest of the family to become involved so quickly. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, trying to take everything in. Well, Olivia, I'm sorry you got caught in the middle, I told her. But I'm done being their scapegoat. They've treated me like crap ever since Grandpa's inheritance. They didn't even want me there last night. I'm not going to keep playing nice when all they do is insult me. She crossed her arms and stared at me. They could have at least talked to me first, you know. I need that money. I know, I admitted, softening my tone. But maybe it's time for them to take some responsibility. They're your parents, too. Why should I be the one to keep you afloat while they sit on their hands? Olivia did not respond soon away. I could tell she was split. On the one hand, she knew I was correct. On the other hand, she was torn between her allegiance to me and the pressure from our parents. Eventually, she shook her head. This is going to get ugly, she grumbled. I'm ready for it, I said. And things did get ugly faster than I thought. By the afternoon, word had spread among the wider family. My cousin, Megan, who always liked to play the role of mediator, called me. Hey, Jeffrey, she said cautiously. I heard about the fight last night. What's going on? I gave her the outline, omitting some of the harsher aspects. Megan listened carefully and sighed. You know, they say you ruined the party. Right? But honestly, a lot of people are on your side. Uncle Rob thinks your dad and mom crossed the line, and Aunt Lisa told them off for the way they treated you. This was surprising. Aunt Lisa normally avoided family turmoil, so her involvement must have irritated her greatly. Wow, I said. Didn't see that coming? Yeah, Megan replied. But Olivia called me earlier, and she's pissed. I think she feels like you threw her under the bus. I massaged my temples. This was turning into a full-fledged family feud. A part of me felt bad. However, another part of me felt relieved. For once, I wasn't the only one feeling their fury. Maybe they'll finally realize how toxic our parents can be. Later that night, Olivia sent me a lengthy text message. She accused me of being selfish and leaving her when she needed me the most. It stung, but I knew she was just acting out under pressure. I did not respond. 2 days later, things erupted again. My father showed up at my workplace. I worked at a downtown marketing business and was astonished to find him standing in the entrance. He wasn't even attempting to mask his rage. We need to talk, he stated bluntly. I'm working, I said, my voice calm. You can call me later. No, he replied. We're doing this now. I sighed and led him outside. He didn't spend any time lying to me. You embarrassed this family, he remarked. Do you realize how many people are turning against us because of your stunt? You think you're better than us now, don't you? Better than you? No, I replied. But I'm not going to let you treat me like dirt anymore. I came to your birthday out of respect, and you threw it back in my face. His eyes narrowed. You think you're entitled because of Grandpa's money? Without him, you'd have nothing. That's rich, I replied. You're the one who's bitter about not getting a share. This isn't about respect or family. It's about control. He did not answer immediately, but I could see the rage in his eyes. Finally, he added, "You're going to regret this, Jeffrey." "No," I replied firmly. "You are." He stormed away without saying another thing. As I watched him leave, I understood this wasn't over. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally standing firm. A few days later, I learned of the impact from other relatives. Aunt Lisa called to complain about how my father had gone around, attempting to turn the entire family against me. Apparently, he told everyone that I had betrayed the family and cut off Olivia as punishment. But, to my astonishment, some relatives did not believe the narrative. Uncle Rob had plainly told my father, "You treated Jeffrey like garbage. Didn't you expect consequences?" Lisa stated that several others were also beginning to see through the act. They remembered how distant my parents had gotten since the inheritance incident. Some of them were now silently supporting me. However, not everyone was supportive. Olivia had gone all in on our parents, and she wasn't holding back. She posted a passive-aggressive rant on Facebook, which everyone knew was directed at me. Family is supposed to be about support, not conditions. Some people think they can just walk away when it's inconvenient for them. Must be nice to live with no responsibilities. Some of us aren't so lucky. It required every ounce of willpower not to shoot back. My phone was buzzing with messages from cousins asking what was going on. The drama was growing like wildfire, and I was caught in the midst. Olivia returned to my house later in the evening. This time she appeared fatigued rather than angry. She didn't even bother with greetings. "Can we talk?" she inquired. I nodded and invited her in. She sank down into the couch and moaned. "This whole thing is a mess, Jeffrey. I have people calling me a traitor, others saying I'm too dependent on you. I can't win. What am I supposed to do?" "Olivia, I understand," I replied. "But this isn't just about the rent. It's about the way they've treated me all these years. I came to Dad's party to make peace, and they humiliated me in front of everyone. You think I'm just going to roll over and take it?" She gazed down at her hands. "I know they were wrong," she said, "but they're still our parents. I don't want to be in the middle of this fight." I could tell she was straining, caught between her allegiance to them and the comfort I had provided. I decided to be honest. "Look, Olivia, I never wanted to make you choose sides, but I'm not going to let them walk all over me anymore. I've supported you because I care, not because I owe them anything. If they want to be responsible for you, let them." Her eyes were filled with frustration. "You don't get it," she retorted. "They won't help me. They never have. Without your support, I'm screwed." For a brief minute, I felt guilty. But then I remembered the years of insults, how they had regarded me like an outcast. I was not going to give up my mental health for those who did not appreciate me. "I'm sorry, Olivia," I whispered quietly, "but I can't do this anymore." She stood and shook her head. "Fine. But don't come crying to me when this all backfires." She went without saying anything else. The following day, events took an unexpected turn. Uncle Rob called to ask if I could meet him for coffee. I agreed, curious to know what he wanted. When I arrived, he quickly got to the point. "Look, Jeffrey, I know things have been tough with your parents, but I want you to know that you're not alone. A lot of us have seen the way they treated you. It's not right." "Thank you, Rob," I replied, drinking my coffee. "But I'm not sure what good it does." "They're not going to change." "Maybe not," he acknowledged. "But I think it's time we stop letting them control the narrative. You don't have to fight this fight alone." He went on to say that other relatives were preparing to confront my parents about their behavior. I had not expected this. Most of them normally avoided family conflict, but this time they were taking a stand. That night, Aunt Lisa called me. "We just had a meeting with your parents," she stated. "It got heated. We told them they needed to apologize to you and start treating you with respect. Of course, your dad was stubborn as hell, but I think we got through to your mom a little." I was stunned. For years, I felt lonely, as if I were the only one who recognized how toxic my parents could be. The family was starting to push back against their actions. Still, I wasn't waiting for an apology. People, including my father, did not change overnight. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, Olivia sent me a message. It was short and mysterious. "We need to talk. Something's happened." Olivia's message made me nervous. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I texted her back. "What's going on?" Her reply was immediate. "Come to mom and dad's. It's serious." Despite my better judgment, I drove over. I knew I was in an enemy country, but if something was truly wrong, I decided I should at least listen to her. When I arrived, Olivia met me at the door. She had a solemn expression on her face, as if she were bracing herself for something heavy. "They're in the living room," she replied softly. I followed her inside and found my parents sitting stiffly on the couch. They both appeared tight, but there was also a hint of something strange. My father motioned for me to sit down, but I remained standing. "All right," I replied, crossing my arms. "What's this about?" My mother sighed heavily. "We didn't want to tell you this way, but Olivia's in trouble. She's behind on her rent again," my father explained. "We just found out that she might be evicted." I looked at Olivia. She looked aside, biting her lip. "We can't let that happen," my father added. "She needs your help, Jeffrey, just until she gets back on her feet." I stared at them for a time, allowing the words to sink in. Something did not feel right. "How did you just find out about this?" I requested an explanation. "We got a call from her landlord," my mother stated hurriedly. "Too quick." Olivia shifted uneasily and avoided eye contact. My instincts kicked in. She had lied to me previously, and the whole situation reeked of manipulation. "So let me get this straight," I said carefully. "You're telling me that her landlord called you instead of her, and this is the first you're hearing about it?" My father's face tightened. "Look, Jeffrey, this isn't the time to question details. Olivia needs help." I turned to face Olivia. "Is this true? Are you behind on the rent?" She hesitated before shaking her head. I'm not behind." I felt my jaw clench. "Then why are you all playing this game?" Olivia grimaced. "They thought if you thought it was serious enough, you'd help again." "That was it?" I snapped. "Are you kidding me? You dragged me here with a fake emergency just to manipulate me into giving you more money?" I turned to my parents. "What is wrong with you people? You couldn't just ask me like normal people." "Jeffrey, don't overreact," my mother said, her tone defensive. "We were trying to protect Olivia. You're the one who cut her off?" "No," I snapped back. "I cut you off. Olivia is a grown woman, and if she's in trouble, it's between her and me. But instead of coming to me honestly, you chose to lie, and you wonder why I want nothing to do with you." I turned to face Olivia. "You went along with this?" She seemed embarrassed. "They pressured me. I didn't know what else to do." "Well, congratulations," I replied bitterly. "You all just made things 10 times worse." I stormed out, but I wasn't finished. My rage only escalated on the way home. I'd put up with their manipulation for years, but this was the final straw. Did they want to play games? Fine. I was going to set the record straight. When I arrived home, I began phoning and messaging the family who had been in contact with me. I told them everything. How my parents had lied about Olivia being in danger, how they had tried to guilt me into assisting after humiliating me at the party, and how they had turned the entire situation into a circus. The answer was quick and nasty. Uncle Rob contacted me first. You're telling me they made that whole story up? Jesus Christ. That's low, even for them. Aunt Lisa became very furious. They've played the victim card for too long. They're toxic, and they've been dragging this family into their mess for years. Word spread immediately. Within a day, the majority of the family understood the truth. The tide had completely changed. Relatives who had been on the fence began to cut off communication with my parents and Olivia. Nobody wants to deal with their deception and manipulation anymore. Olivia texted me and begged me to stop. Please, Jeffrey, you're losing everyone. They say it's your fault. My fault? I said. You brought this on yourself. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely supported. The family finally realized what I had been struggling with all along. My parents and Olivia attempted damage management, but it was too late. Nobody bought their justifications anymore. It was bizarre. For so long, I'd felt like the black sheep, but suddenly I was no longer an outcast. My parents were. Quite frankly, it seemed like justice. A week later, the aftermath was complete. My parents attempted to rally support from the rest of the family. However, their expectations had not been met. Megan told me that they had even sought out some of their more distant relatives, whom they hadn't spoken to in years, in an attempt to elicit sympathy. They called Aunt Marie, Megan remarked, laughing as she told me. You know, the one who never puts up with anybody's nonsense? Apparently, my father told her a sob story about how I turned everyone against them. He replied, maybe if you weren't such a control freak, your family wouldn't hate you. Then she hung up with him. Hearing that was more satisfying than I want to admit. But the big shock came when I discovered they were attempting to seek assistance from Uncle Peter, the wealthy individual who resided out of state. Peter had always been rather indifferent about family problems. But he was not ignorant. He had seen through my parents' games years before. I later learned that when they phoned him, he did not hold back. Peter told them straight out, Megan explained. Don't call me again. I'm not wasting my time with your theatrics. It was horrible. Every lifeline they attempted to clutch crumbled into dust. The people they formerly ruled had had enough. By the end of the week, my parents were almost completely separated. Olivia attempted to contact a few cousins, but none of them were interested in getting involved anymore. The entire family had cut her off. They're done, Rob informed me. No one wants to deal with their drama. It's just them now, Mom, Dad, and Olivia in their little kingdom of misery. I nearly felt bad for Olivia. Almost. She had decided to side with them and support their lies. Now she was stranded on their sinking ship. A few days later, my father contacted me. I pondered ignoring it, but ultimately chose to respond. I was curious to hear what he would say. Jeffrey, he said after a pause, we need to talk. Do we? I said, my tone I see. We made some mistakes, he said hesitantly, but you've made things worse by turning everyone against us. Don't you think it's time to end this feud? I laughed bitterly. You think this is my fault? You brought this on yourself. You lied to me. You humiliated me in front of my family. Now you're facing the consequences. And you want me to fix it for you. Jeffrey, please. We're still family. Funny, I said. You didn't care about your family when you called me a loser in front of everyone. Now that you have no one left, you want my help? I'm done. He tried to argue, but I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to him. It was the last time I spoke with any of them. I later learned through the grapevine that they were fighting to maintain appearances. With their family ties cut, they had no one to rely on. Olivia, who had previously relied on my support, was now discovering the hard way that our parents had no intention of assisting her. As for me, I felt free. For the first time in years, I was not burdened by their toxicity. I had my life back and the support of loved ones who genuinely cared about me. My parents and Olivia were left in their self-created realm. There is no one to blame but each other. And honestly, I was fine with that. My sister invited my abusive ex to my wedding to sabotage it. I exposed her infidelity to her boyfriend, and she lost everything. Hello, Reddit? I 32F never imagined that I would be blogging here, but I feel the need to vent after everything that has transpired. I know the title sounds harsh, but bear with me. It will take a while to read this. I've always considered my family to be very typical. I'm the eldest of two sisters. Although they weren't severe, our parents instilled strong values in us and worked hard to provide us with a wonderful existence. When we were younger, my sister, Catherine, 28F, and I were close. But during her adolescence, things began to change. She started to seek attention more and somehow kept getting into problems. Her problems, failing classes, sneaking out, and lying about where she was going, took up a lot of my parents' time. I, on the other hand, was consistent in my grades, complied with regulations, and never caused trouble. The tendency persisted after college. While Catherine changed employment frequently, never remaining for more than 8 or 9 months at one place, I was able to secure a steady work. She would get dismissed for a variety of reasons or quit because the atmosphere was toxic. Our parents continued to support her financially by paying her vehicle payments and rent when she was unable to. I also made an effort to assist by setting up 2 interviews for her at my company, but she was late for the first one and failed to show up for the second. 3 years ago, during my friend Lisa's 30th birthday celebration, I met my husband, Tyler. He worked with Lisa, and as soon as we spoke, everything made sense. He's thoughtful, steady, funny, and pretty much everything I've been searching for. I first became aware of Catherine's strange conduct during our year-long courtship before we moved in together. She would always arrive at our house without warning when she knew Tyler would be home. She wouldn't be able to visit if Tyler was working late. She began asking me strange questions about our relationship, such as if we had ever argued, whether I believed he was truly dedicated, and whether I was concerned about the 2-year age difference. I initially believed that she was merely protecting me, or perhaps feeling envious that I was seeing her less. Since Brett, my ex, is significant to this narrative, I should bring him up here. In my mid-20s, Brett and I dated for 2 years. After a wonderful beginning, he gradually started to exert control over the relationship. He would arrive at work without warning, check my phone while I was asleep, and become upset if I went out with friends without him. He kept me apart from everyone but my family, and dispute about my messaging, a male coworker about work, was the last straw. He shoved me up against a wall and said that if I ever disrespected him again, it would get worse. That evening, I went to live with my parents and obtained a restraining order. Catherine even assisted me in moving my belongings out of his house, so the entire family is aware of what transpired. Tyler popped the question on a beach vacation last year. I was ecstatic, and it was ideal. I was too thrilled to notice Catherine's strange silence when we made the announcement at family supper. When I brought up wedding preparations, she became excited and virtually pleaded for my assistance. I was apprehensive because of her history of not completing tasks, but she appeared very excited and assured me that she would take it seriously. I persuaded Tyler to give her a try, despite his skepticism. A huge error. The issues began modestly. Despite forgetting to relay vendor messages and scheduling conflicts, she always had an excuse and would make the necessary corrections just in time to appear as though she had saved the day. Then more serious problems began to arise. Although I had sent the money to Catherine weeks prior, the venue asserted that they never got our payment. Although Catherine insisted she had handled it, the florist canceled since final selections were never confirmed. We required food for 50 guests, but the caterer only had enough for 50. Every time something went wrong, Catherine would seem heartbroken and somehow repair it at the last minute, making herself appear heroic, while I became angry with myself for having any doubts about her. I stood up for Catherine, even though Tyler proposed that we handle the planning ourselves. She was my sister, and I believe she was genuinely attempting to assist. I saw her browsing Tyler's phone at our parents' place 2 weeks prior to the wedding. Tyler had left his phone charging in the kitchen while he was assisting Dad with something in the garage, and she had offered to help set up for Sunday dinner. She abruptly put down the phone when I entered, saying she was only attempting to show Mom some wedding pictures I had sent Tyler. It felt strange, but I ignored it because I had so many other wedding-related issues to handle. The wedding day got off to a fairly typical start. Everything appeared to be in order. All of the vendors arrived on time. The location looked stunning, and the flowers were just what I had requested. My bridesmaids and I were in the bridal room when I heard something outside. I glanced out before anyone could stop me and saw Brett and the security guys fighting. My heart stopped beating. I was making a big mistake. He was screaming, and he needed to talk to me. He was taken out by security, but I was shaken. How was the wedding even known to him? Since the restraining order ended 3 years ago, I hadn't spoken to him. My best friend, Sarah, who has never been fond of Catherine, showed me something on her phone at that point. She was able to access her unlocked phone while Catherine was in the restroom, after spotting her acting suspiciously. Brett and Catherine exchanged messages for weeks. She had informed him that I wasn't content with Tyler, emailed him all the wedding information, and persuaded him that I still harbored affections for him. She couldn't stand seeing me settle for the wrong man, so she vowed to help him win me back. However, things worsened. Sarah discovered correspondence between Catherine and Ryan, her boyfriend, in which Catherine expressed her affections for Tyler. She admitted that she had initially spotted him at Lisa's party, but thought I had stolen him. In order to fully express her feelings to Tyler, she was attempting to call off the wedding. She even griped to Ryan about how unfair it was that while she was stuck with him, her plain older sister had landed such a great guy. Despite my devastation, I vowed not to let them spoil my day. Although it did not go as neatly as anticipated, the wedding did take place. Playing the role of the worried sister, Catherine pretended to be utterly surprised by Brett's appearance. When my parents learned what she had done, they were incensed. But we made the decision to handle it after the honeymoon. I showed Ryan everything when we returned, including Catherine's communications with Brett and her admissions regarding Tyler. Despite his pain, Ryan thanked me. At that point, he informed me of Catherine's questionable actions with her coworker, Mike. She and he had apparently been spending a lot of time together at work, going to lunch every day and messaging constantly. She consistently brushed off Ryan's worries, claiming that Ryan was being overly neurotic and that Mike was merely a buddy. That's what inspired me to seek retribution. Even though I may have gone too far, I don't regret it given what she did to me. Knowing that Catherine would be having her daily lunch meeting with Mike, I assisted Ryan in organizing a surprise visit to her place of employment. As they say, the rest is history. Update 1. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired. Yesterday's workplace altercation, which I assisted in organizing, was far more chaotic than I had anticipated. Ryan told me everything, even though I wasn't there, and tidbits have also been coming in from other sources. Ryan did this by taking a day off from his own employment. For a week, he had been keeping tabs on Catherine's lunch habits. She consistently ate her meal with Mike in his office with the door closed, and for precisely 75 minutes rather than the usual hour. Other staff members Ryan talked to said that this had been occurring for months. At precisely 12:45 p.m., when Catherine would undoubtedly be in Mike's office, he planned his visit. Ryan informed me that he nearly canceled at the last minute. He debated whether he truly wanted to know the truth for 15 minutes while he stood in the parking lot. He got the boost he needed, though, when he recalled all the texts about Tyler and how Catherine believed she was settling for Ryan. Ryan was in without question, after the office receptionist recognized him from company events. He headed to the third-floor office where Mike worked. He could see them sitting on Mike's desk chair together, heads hunched over Mike's phone, giggling about something through the glass divider. Mike had Catherine virtually on his lap. Ryan claimed that they appeared to be a long-term couple who were totally at ease with one another. After a single knock, Ryan entered. He said that Catherine knocked over a cup of coffee when she leaped away from Mike. In a matter of seconds, her expression changed from shock to terror to rage. Given that Catherine had never brought up having a boyfriend, Mike simply appeared perplexed. She said that she couldn't wear rings while typing, which is why she had been wearing her promise ring from Ryan. Yes, they had exchanged promise rings 6 months prior, on a chain around her neck at work. Ryan gently made his way to Mike's desk, rather than shouting or making a disturbance. As Catherine most likely anticipated, printouts of Catherine's messages, including those about Tyler and her discussions with Brett about spoiling my wedding, were in a folder he put there. "She's all yours." He murmured, turning to go after giving Mike a quick glance. Catherine began to panic at that point. She made a scene in the center of the office as she chased after Ryan and grabbed his arm. In tears, she said that she could explain everything and that it wasn't what it appeared to be. By now, a number of colleagues had emerged from their desks to observe the action. According to Ryan, other people were using their phones to record it. Those movies must be doing the rounds in the office right now. The higher authorities took notice of their argument. The department head and Catherine's immediate supervisor arrived to look into the disturbance. At this point, things truly took a turn for the worse. Catherine began disclosing inappropriate information in her haste to defend herself. She mentioned contacting Brett regarding my wedding during business hours. She mentioned using her business phone to make long-distance calls to him. She even acknowledged that she had printed wedding-related documents on the office printer. It seems that she had been printing wedding invitations for people using workplace resources as a type of side gig. With every admittance, the department head's expression seemed to harden. He called Ed right away to retrieve her phone logs and print them out. They learned at that point that she had been making private international calls to a person in Europe, which was likely another secret she was maintaining. However, Ryan, who had had enough of being deceived, dropped the true bombshell. He told me something that made me feel sick. Catherine had arrived at the bar by coincidence the night before my wedding, at Tyler's bachelor party. One of Tyler's groomsmen, Ryan, was present. Catherine cornered Tyler outside the restroom and attempted to kiss him after the majority of others had gone. Catherine pleaded with Ryan not to tell me, but Tyler pushed her away right away and walked away. She sobbed, claimed to be intoxicated and disoriented, and vowed that it would never occur again. By threatening to destroy my wedding day if I found out, she coerced Ryan into remaining silent. I contacted Tyler as soon as Ryan told me about this section today. He stated he didn't inform me because he didn't want to start a commotion just before the wedding. But he did confirm everything. After we returned from the honeymoon, he intended to inform me. Tyler was attempting to keep me happy on my wedding day. Therefore, I'm not upset with him. However, I'm upset with Catherine for placing him in that situation. The consequences have been enormous. Catherine's supervisors are thoroughly auditing her computer usage and spending. Mike reportedly went to HR to defend himself, saying that despite his request to maintain professionalism, Catherine had been making inappropriate advances. Ryan's observations are totally at odds with this, but I suppose Mike is attempting to protect himself. Last night, Ryan left their shared flat. Until he can locate a new place, he is staying with friends. Everyone's phones have been blown up by Catherine, including Tyler's, Ryan's, our parents, and B. Our parents disagree about how to respond to this. Mom says I should have handled it privately as a family concern and believes I went too far by bringing up Catherine's place of employment. But Dad is really on my side. He asserts that, rather than receiving another bailout, Catherine should finally experience the repercussions of her actions. I have no regrets about what I did. Perhaps I went too far, but she deserves everything that comes her way because of what she did to my wedding, attempted to do to my marriage, and has been doing to Ryan. This is only the beginning, according to what Ryan is telling me. The company audit will uncover much more than improper phone calls and mishandled office supplies. When I have more information, I'll update. Update 2. If it was conceivable, things with Catherine have become worse. When the audit results were released, they were much more detrimental than anyone had anticipated. The finding of systematic fraud resulted from an investigation into the misuse of business resources for wedding sabotage. Catherine had been submitting fictitious expense reports for non-existent customer appointments for the last 8 months. She made complex spreadsheets with fictitious phone numbers and email addresses that detailed encounters with possible clients. She even falsified the signatures on paperwork confirming the encounter. She falsely claimed more than $15,000 in reimbursements in total. The really heinous thing, though, is that she had set up a paper trail that implicated Jenny, her assistant. She had been gradually assembling evidence to blame Jenny for everything in the event that she was apprehended. There were documents stored on Jenny's drive, a phony confession letter saved as a draft, and suspicious emails written but not sent from Jenny's computer, which Catherine had access to because Jenny trusted her. All of this was discovered by the company's IT team while conducting their inquiry. The employer is filing charges against her in addition to terminating her. Catherine had designated me as her emergency contact rather than our parents. So yesterday, the HR director gave me a call. He wanted to alert me to the fact that they would be filing a lawsuit. Their legal team is getting the documentation ready, and they have already called the police. The coworker she was becoming close to, Mike, has totally put her under the bus. He brought a thorough statement to HR, alleging that Catherine had been pestering him sexually for months. He said that despite his repeated attempts to maintain professional boundaries, she had surrounded him in the break room, sent him proper texts after work hours, and made unwanted physical contact. He even showed images of him requesting that she refrain from sending him late-night texts. I was shown a few of Catherine's most recent mails by Ryan. She has been sending him a ton of emails and texts, alternating between pleading with him to return and pointing the finger at everyone else for her troubles. In fact, she claimed, if my sister hadn't taken Tyler away from me, none of this would have occurred. She was aware that I was interested in him, and that I had seen him first at that gathering. But she wanted to have him for herself, since she has always been envious of me. These texts include terrifying delusions. She stated that Tyler was clearly settling for second best with me, that they made meaningful eye contact at family dinners, and that he would particularly chuckle at her jokes. Even though Tyler hardly recalls speaking to her during family get-togethers, she seems to sincerely think that they had a relationship. However, my mother made the most startling discovery yesterday. She contacted me in tears and said she had something to tell me that she ought to have told me years ago. Catherine had apparently engaged in a similar activity during her high school years. She sought to quit their relationship after becoming fixated with her best friend, Rachel's boyfriend. She wrote fictitious love letters from the boyfriend to herself, circulated false accusations that Rachel was cheating, and finally attempted to kiss him at a party. She told everyone that he had attempted to attack her after he turned her down. When the truth was finally revealed, Mom sent her to counseling, but it was obvious that this didn't make much of a difference. Mom holds herself responsible for not informing me of this situation sooner. She kept it private to preserve Catherine's reputation, since she believed that the conduct had stopped after therapy, and that it was only a passing phase. She now understands that she ought to have forewarned me when Catherine began displaying excessive interest in Tyler. Ryan is now staying with friends. After moving all of his possessions out of their apartment, he met a female at his gym, and he has already begun dating her. Catherine had a total breakdown after learning about it from mutual acquaintances. They threatened to call the police after she arrived at his gym, crying and making a disturbance. She even attempted to persuade our father to speak with Ryan, but he turned her down, telling her that, for the first time in her life, she would have to deal with the fallout from her actions. She had another tantrum as a result, accusing our parents of constantly favoring me and forcing her to compete for everything. I'm done with Catherine, even though I'm not sure what will happen with the legal accusations. It was all an act. The sister I believed I had never existed. I can't help but notice her true identity now that the mask has come off. Update 3. A month has passed since my previous post, and things have finally calmed down, though not in the manner Catherine likely had in mind. The business proceeded with pressing charges. She faces official charges of embezzlement and fraud. Her attorney suggested that she accept a plea agreement, which would probably spare her from going to jail, but would require her to serve probation and pay full reparations. She suffered financially as a result of losing her work. Due to the charges appearing in background checks, she is unable to get a new job. Due to her 2-month rent arrears, her landlord slapped her with an eviction notice last week. When prospective employers contacted her former company for references, she attempted to conceal her current residence by applying for jobs using our parents' address. Ryan has moved on entirely. He is formally dating Sarah, a girl from his gym, and they appear to be happy together. She is nice and totally different from Catherine, who I met last week. She leads a pretty drama-free life and holds steady work as a kindergarten teacher. There is no greater glaring contrast with Catherine. When Jenny, Catherine's old assistant, contacted me on LinkedIn, it was a true surprise. She wanted to express her gratitude to me for unintentionally revealing Catherine's plots. Evidently, Catherine had been claiming credit for her work and quietly threatening her job security for months, making her workplace a living hell. The corporation is funding Jenny's further certifications, and she has been elevated to Catherine's previous role. After Catherine attempted to place the responsibility for everything on my parents, they are now all disappointed in her. When she arrived at their home last week, she yelled that they had destroyed her life by constantly comparing her to me and made her feel inferior. She claimed Dad was controlling because he wouldn't give her the money to hire a lawyer, and she accused Mom of partiality since Mom assisted me more with wedding planning after Catherine ruined everything. She unexpectedly arrived at our house last night. She was crying because she needed aid and was about to be evicted. I remained in the kitchen while Tyler opened the door. He blocked her path when she attempted to push past him to reach me. She began yelling that he was stuck in a loveless marriage with me, that she had always loved him more than I could, and that they were meant to be together. Normally extremely calm and courteous, Tyler informed her she needed professional treatment and threatened to get a restraining order if she returned to our home. She cried out that we would regret it and that we would pay a price for ruining her life. I just replied, "Catherine, you ruined your own life." As I made my way to the door, we simply revealed your actions. While she was in the middle of her tirade, I shut the door. I've blocked her on social media, email, and the phone. Our parents understood when I informed them I was done with her. Although they aren't totally cutting her off, they have made it clear that they will no longer give her money or allow her to control them. We have to move to a different state, since Tyler received a promotion at work. To be honest, the timing of our move next month couldn't be more ideal. We need a new beginning away from all of this drama. Catherine won't know about the move until we're already gone, so we haven't told her, and don't intend to. I've discovered that toxic is toxic, regardless of blood relationship, despite the saying that blood is thicker than water. I've come to terms with the fact that my sister never existed and grieved for her. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me along the way. I'm excited to begin our new life without any drama. Lab partner mocks me for being short, so I brought a measuring tape to set the record straight. Now he's embarrassed and denying everything. Original post. I am a 5'1" female, and my lab partner constantly makes fun of me for being short. For example, I came back from the bathroom, and he said I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny. He also said that my hair is so big, it makes my head and me look even more tiny. I am not insecure about my height, nor does making fun of it offend me, but it's annoying and ironic because he's short too. Looks 5'6". And yes, I know it might be because he's interested in me, but I don't find him attractive, so the teasing isn't cute. It's just very, very annoying. Last lab I had enough of it, and basically told him to shut up because he's like 5'5". He said he's not 5'5", and he's 5'9". I know I am very short, but he is definitely not over 5'7". We started arguing about it, so I told him I'll bring a measuring tape next class, and we'll find out the truth. I started to feel a bit bad after, because I know men are very insecure about their height. However, him obviously lying about his height and constantly making fun of me makes me in the mood to be petty. Will bringing the measuring tape make me an asshole? Edit. I accidentally put 22 in my title for my lab partner. To correct myself, I am female 20 and my lab partner that makes fun of me is male 22. More explanation as to what he says. Editor's note. Fix the title of the Boru for clarity. Some of OP's comments. Commenter. NTA. He's finally found someone shorter than him and it makes him feel superior. If he can't take it, he shouldn't dish it out. OP. Do you think me bringing the measuring tape will make me the asshole? Commenter. NTA. Bring in the measuring tape and a big black Sharpie. Don't say a word to him. Go to the door frame and mark 4, 5s and 6. Between the 5 and 6 foot marks, place the inches. Remember how parents used to measure kids' heights against the wall for the door frame and leave marks for little. Susie is so tall on October 31, and Ben is so tall on the same date. Don't say another word to him, just leave the measuring marks so he has to look at them every day as he passes by the chart. Keep direct eye contact with him whenever he walks by it. Oop. I'm rolling with laughter. Thank you for this idea. I'm definitely going to do this. I was planning on just measuring him, but the marks on the wall would be more accurate. I don't know if I would be allowed to draw on the wall with a Sharpie though. I may do it with a washable marker instead. Commenter. Nay? He shouldn't dish it if he can't take it. But I don't know that it'd help to escalate with the tape if you'll still need to work with him. Can you switch partners? Whoop. No. I can't switch my partner. This is my assigned partner for the rest of the semester. Thankfully, I only have 3 classes left. Commenter. Downvoted. He's definitely trying to flirt with you. I am. Oh. He wants to emphasize how small you are because it makes him feel bigger. And he's probably not used to that, lol. He wants to make it clear that compared to him, you're just cute and small. He's obviously insecure about his own height. I do think being short has wildly different implications for men and women, but it's not like you decided to do this after he made an offhand comment. You're clearly annoyed by this, and he's being disruptive and kind of desperate by not shutting the fuck up about it. Measuring tape might be the exact tool you need to show him why this kind of shit is very bad for him. Lol. OP. I think so too, which is why I was hesitant to say anything. I didn't want to make him more insecure. I don't think he means it in a harmful way, but it's just annoying because he mentions it every single lab. However, last class he kept making inappropriate comments about our other lab partner and I getting married and having babies. That really crossed the line for me. I gave him a death stare and told him to stop in all seriousness because the comments he was making were just making things awkward and uncomfortable. He chose not to listen and keep going thinking he was funny. After that, I lost all respect for him. Commenter: I had a guy worked with once who insisted he was 5'8". I literally said, we're the exact same height, and I'm 5'3". Dude had the audacity to say someone had lied to me because I was obviously 5'7" or so. NTA, don't let their fragile masculinity bother you. Measure that boy. OOP. This is absolutely hilarious. This guy said the same thing, that I must be 5'5". So now I'm suddenly not short anymore. Lmao. The audacity of these men to lie by a whole 4 inches, thinking people won't notice, is just embarrassing. OP adds a bit more from his bullying. I'll tell you what I told the other person who said the same thing. To clarify, he also said, I thought you fell in the toilet because you're so tiny. When I got back, because it took a while. He also said, my hair is so big, it makes my head and me look even more tiny. To add on, he repeatedly calls me shorty, or brings up my race, saying, my people are usually short. When I try to ignore him, he just keeps repeating the same thing to annoy me and get a reaction. I love being short, so there's nothing to be sensitive about. It's him being annoying and making these comments to someone he barely knows. All the while he's also very short. That bothers me. Oh, and I'm bringing the tape. Update. Same post. Update. I got to class late because of traffic, so I didn't have time to tape it up. Also, there is no actual wall beside me, so nowhere I could really tape it. But I still measured him. I whipped my tape measure out, and they started laughing at first because everyone knew what was about to go down. Before I measured him, he asked me what the margin of error was and said, that thing is 2-3 inches off. We both knew he lied at this point. Lol. But I insisted on measuring him, and at first, he didn't want to get measured. I told him to take his shoes off, and he said he didn't want to. I said I'm subtracting an inch from the measurement then. He was 5'7" with the shoes on, so without them, he's actually a little less. Even after I clearly measured him, he kept denying it, saying, it's wrong, that I measured him wrong, and the tape measure is incorrect. He then looked up how tall is 67 inches, because he kept saying that must not be 5'7". I couldn't believe he kept denying it even though I clearly just measured him. His friend, in the lab group across from us, is about the same height as him and also lied about his height last time. So he was embarrassed too, because they both were obviously lying. I made a joke about how the top 2 inches must be invisible, and he wasn't too happy. Our lab Tia 6'2" came over and asked what the measuring tape was for. I told him it was to measure his height, pointing to my lab partner. I said he lied and the TA started laughing too. Next week I'm thinking of just taping the measuring tape at the door before class, so they're always reminded of it when they walk in. There's really nothing more I can do. We both know he lied, even if he doesn't admit it. Editor's note. Marked as concluded since OP hasn't updated and proved her point. Everyone knows the kid was lying. Dad chose my stepbrother's wedding over mine, so my grandpa walked me down the aisle, and I inherited his lake house. I, 28, am in dire need of guidance regarding my wedding circumstances. Family drama has made what could have been a great situation into a total nightmare. I'll start from the beginning to help you understand how we got here, because there's a lot to unpack. I grew up in what I believe to be a happy family as an only child. Weekend excursions with my parents, family game evenings, and my dad teaching me how to ride a bike are all part of my early recollections. The type of father who would construct tree houses for me and ward off monsters beneath my bed. He was my hero. But when I was 14, everything changed. The day my parents sat me down and announced their impending divorce is still fresh in my mind. Mom had discovered that Dad was having an affair with his coworker, Laura, 42F. Dad and Laura were married 6 months after the divorce was finalized. At that point, I got to know Aaron, 25M, Laura's son from a prior marriage. The change wasn't simple. Suddenly, I had a stepbrother after being an only child. My dad took it upon himself to be Aaron's ideal father figure when his biological father abandoned him when he was a little child. I initially found it admirable that Dad was assisting a child in need of a father. I was unaware that this would ultimately result in the death of my own father. Although slow, the alterations persisted. Aaron's baseball schedule became the focal point of our Sunday father-daughter breakfasts, which evolved into family breakfasts. My dad used to attend all of my dance recitals, but he started missing them because Aaron had practices or games. Despite having no baseball knowledge, he even joined Aaron's squad as assistant coach. My mother remarried David, a good man who had a job offer in another state, when I was 16. Despite everything, I wanted to be near my dad, so I chose to stay when they asked if I wanted to relocate with them. In retrospect, I wish I had chosen differently. My final year of college was the true turning moment. One rainy night, I was hit by another automobile that ran a red light while I was traveling home. Due to intestinal bleeding, I need emergency surgery. David and Mom flew in right away, but my dad? He texted me to let me know that Aaron was having a breakdown over his girlfriend ending their relationship, so he couldn't go. I was in the hospital for 3 days, and he never once came up. I concentrated on creating my own life after graduation. At work, I met Mike, 30M, the new manager, and we became friends because we both enjoy hiking and classic sci-fi films. He proposed to us on a sunrise hike to our favorite location after 3 years of dating. It was ideal, and I felt as though my life was finally coming together for the first time. We sent out invitations 6 months in advance and decided to get married on October 15th of this year. I debated whether or not to ask Dad to escort me down the aisle for weeks. He was still my father in spite of everything, and I secretly hoped that this would be our opportunity to mend our relationship. A month prior to the wedding, I made the decision to hold off and surprise him with the request. However, Dad called me to lunch before I could ask him. He avoided making eye contact and appeared anxious. At last, he revealed the shocking news. Dad had already agreed to be Aaron's best man, and Aaron was getting married on October 15. I had the impression that I had been punched in the stomach. I asked Aaron why he picked the same day, and he told me it was the day he and his fiancée initially met 2 years prior. I mentioned that Aaron was aware of our date and that we had sent out our invitations months prior. Dad's reaction: since my venue was more flexible, while Aaron's was extremely exclusive, he recommended that I change my date. I wouldn't alter our date. Deposits had already been made, invitations had been sent, and relatives were traveling in from abroad. Dad accused me of being self-centered and disregarding Aaron's sentiments. When I attempted to explain this, he claimed that because Aaron never had a real father figure, he needed him more. When my grandfather, Mom's father, learned, the situation blew out. He and I have always been close, particularly since my parents' divorce. He offered to take me down the aisle right away since he was upset with my dad. Then Dad made an unexpected announcement. He said he would give his vacation home to Mike and me as a wedding present. It is a stunning waterfront property that we have always appreciated. Dad abruptly changed his mind. He contacted me and said he could make both weddings work, showing up at my reception to dance with me after serving as Aaron's best man at the ceremony. He began accusing me of destroying the family and forcing him to make a decision when I didn't agree right away. Karma, however, had other ideas. It seems that Aaron did not ask Dad to his wedding 2 weeks prior. Aaron wanted his biological father to be his best man instead, according to Dad, who called me in tears, assuming he could just lead me down the aisle as if nothing had happened. Dad was now free to take part in every aspect of my wedding. No, I told him. Given his extraordinary generosity, I didn't want to upset my grandfather by denying him this moment because he had stepped up when Dad stepped out. Dad went totally crazy. He began shouting that I was being deceived by my grandfather, that I was selling my loyalty for a house, and that I was putting money before family. I blocked his number after hanging up on him. His whole family is now accusing me of being materialistic and callous. Dad is hurting. Therefore, my stepmother Lara says I should be more compassionate. Since he's now available, even some of my friends believe I'm being too harsh, and that I should give him another try. However, I don't believe I'm mistaken. This goes beyond the wedding. It's about years of being viewed as Aaron's second best friend and having my needs and feelings ignored in favor of Aaron. Since he's only coming to me since his first choice didn't work out, why should I give him this unique moment? So, Reddit. Even if my dad is now available, am I wrong for not letting him lead me down the aisle? By picking my grandfather who gave us a house over my father, am I being materialistic? I greatly benefit from an independent viewpoint on this. Update 1. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone for their encouraging words and remarks. I feel more sure now about my choice, thanks to all of you. However, since my previous post, a lot has transpired, and I must tell you about the mayhem that occurred during my wedding rehearsal. Yesterday, the rehearsal was set to begin at our location at 05:00 p.m. It was going well. The ladies were practicing their steps. Mike's nephew was performing admirably as our ring bearer, and my granddad was rehearsing, leading me down the aisle. Then my father unexpectedly arrived. We didn't notice him at first. He crept into the rear of the venue and observed from the sidelines. He didn't start yelling until we were in the middle of the second practice, yelling that this was all wrong and that he was my real father, who had a greater right to be there than my grandfather. He rushed down the aisle and shoved past my bridesmaids. Bless him, my grandfather made an effort to remain composed. Protectively, he moved in front of me and beckoned Dad away. Dad became even more irate as a result. He began bringing up old family history, saying that my grandfather had never liked him and that the house offer had turned me against him. He even claimed that my grandfather was attempting to purchase his way into the position of father of the bride. The worst thing? Dad could not stand up straight, and his sentences were slurred, so it was obvious he had been drinking. Before venue security arrived, Dad attempted to physically shove my grandfather away from me after Mike phoned them. Fortunately, Mike's brother intervened and restrained him. The entire event was terrifying. My mom was taping everything in case we needed proof for a restraining order. My bridesmaids were stunned, and my flower girls were crying. Dad started yelling at me as security escorted him out, saying that I was dead to him and that I would regret putting money before blood. It was simultaneously heartbreaking and humiliating. However, this is when things took a surprising turn. My stepmother, Lara, had slipped in behind Dad in all the confusion. She drew me aside after he left and asked if we could speak in private. I was completely stunned by what she disclosed. Lara believes that Aaron had purposefully orchestrated this entire wedding date catastrophe. She handed me screenshots of 3 months' worth of chats between Aaron and his fiancée. Although they had talked about a number of potential wedding dates, Aaron insisted on October 15 since it was my date. He boasted in his texts that he was going to show Dad that he loved him more than I did. The really terrible thing, though, my father was aware of this. Aaron freely shared his idea with Dad in texts that Lara showed me. Dad had replied that he understood Aaron's feelings and would back Aaron's decision rather than shutting it down. Knowing that I would have to reschedule my date or risk losing Aaron as a part of my ceremony, Dad even assisted Aaron in booking the location. As she showed me all of this, Lara was in tears. She claimed to have witnessed Dad's favoritism of Aaron for years, but she always justified it by telling herself that Aaron needed more help because his biological father wasn't there. But after witnessing Dad's handling of this matter, she realized how poisonous things had gotten. The family dynamic I observed was only the beginning, she disclosed. It seems that Dad has been snooping around and turning down invites to family gatherings where I would be expected, claiming that I was too busy or that I didn't want to attend. He has been giving Aaron details about my life and pushing him to match my accomplishments. In fact, when I got engaged, Dad advised Aaron to pop the question to his fiancée very far away in order to avoid falling behind. Lara expressed her sincere regret for not speaking up sooner. She claimed that she is divorcing her father because she can no longer put up with his actions, particularly after witnessing him attempt to physically threaten my grandfather at the rehearsal. She has come to the realization that Dad is actively supporting Aaron's efforts to exclude me from the family, not merely playing favorites. Despite all of this drama, I'm more sure than ever of my choice. And the wedding is tomorrow. We've hired additional security to make sure Dad can't enter the venue, and my grandfather will lead me down the aisle. I declined Mike's suggestion that we postpone if I needed more time to take it all in. I refused to let our beautiful day be ruined by Dad and Aaron's games. Some of Dad's family members continue to support him, saying that family should be together and that I'm exaggerating. I'm done feeling bad, though, after seeing those texts and seeing Dad's inebriated outburst. This is about years of emotional abuse and manipulation that I'm finally seeing clearly. It's not about the house, the money, or even who will accompany me down the aisle anymore. I just want to concentrate on my wedding for the time being. But Lara stated she would testify if I wanted a restraining order. My grandfather, mom, stepdad, and my wonderful fiancée are all on my side. Perhaps it is all the family I require. If something noteworthy occurs after the wedding, I'll provide another update. Before the big day, I need to try to get some sleep right now. Again, I want to thank everyone for their support. You have no idea how much it means. Update 2. This is more twisted than I could have imagined, but here we are. Any reservations I had about removing my dad from my life have been totally dispelled by what I'm going to reveal. My grandfather escorted me down the aisle. Mike's vows brought everyone to tears of joy, and the additional security made sure there were no unwelcome disruptions. Everything about my wedding went flawlessly. Even our first married holiday was spent at my grandfather's lake house, which is now our official residence. However, I received a call from my cousin Amy yesterday. As Lara's niece, she went to Aaron's wedding, and what she told me completely upended everything. Do you recall how Dad said Aaron declined his invitation and went with his biological father? It was an outright falsehood. Amy claims that Aaron never asked Dad not to come. In reality, it was far more deliberate. 3 months before the wedding, Aaron's biological father, who had been gone all of his life, unexpectedly made a reappearance. We're talking about a $80,000 celebration at a prestigious vineyard, and he felt bad for leaving Aaron. As a way to make things right, he volunteered to cover the entire wedding. Dad felt intimidated when Aaron's biological father offered to cover half of Aaron's wedding expenses, which came to almost $40,000. It drove him insane that he couldn't match that degree of generosity. Dad viewed Aaron's reconnection with his biological father as competition rather than a positive development. The actual kicker? Dad decided not to attend the wedding himself. He informed Aaron that if the biological father was covering all of the costs, he would not go. In fact, He attempted to force Aaron to choose between having Dad serve as his best man and having his ideal wedding paid for. Dad yelled at Aaron when he decided to have the wedding paid for, of course. However, he made up the excuse about not being invited rather than telling me this. He believed that by playing the victim, he would win my sympathy and be able to lead me down the aisle. He was attempting to get into mine by using Aaron's wedding as leverage. Things worsen. Videos from Aaron's wedding reception that Amy showed me showed Dad watching from the parking lot in the background. He watched the celebration through the windows of the venue for hours while he sat in his car. No one wanted to cause a commotion by alerting security, but a few attendees observed and felt uneasy. What Dad has been telling everyone about my grandfather's gift is the most annoying thing. He is circulating allegations among the family that I looked around for a partner and offered my grandfather's house to the person who showed the greatest interest in me. He's telling people that I deceived my grandfather into giving up his land and that he's getting old. On social media, some family members have started making crude remarks about our wedding pictures, since they even think he's real. A relative wrote, "It's sad how some people trade family loyalty for material gain. I hope the house was worth losing your father over," said another uncle. I drove to Dad's house because I was so furious and wanted to tell him everything I knew. A bad concept. Rather than offering an apology or even acknowledging it, he attempted to defend his behavior. He said that by inventing the tale of Aaron not inviting him, he was testing my loyalty. He said that regardless of the house gift, I would have demanded that he escort me down the aisle if I truly loved him. Then, because Aaron is also related, he had the gall to insist that Aaron receive a portion of my grandfather's present. Because it's not fair that Aaron receives nothing, and I receive such a great present, he genuinely proposed that we sell the lake house and divide the proceeds. He threatened to challenge the property transfer in court when I declined. I was both relieved and appalled when I left his place. I just know that I made the proper choice every time I learned something new. After that, Lara called me and told me that ever since my grandfather made the gift announcement, Dad has been obsessed with the lake house. He and Aaron apparently thought I would allow them to use it for weekend fishing excursions since we're family. Because of Dad's disparaging remarks about my grandfather and me, I've made the decision to have my attorney write him a cease and desist letter. In order to defend himself against Dad's untrue statements on his mental health, my grandfather is also investigating his legal alternatives. Aaron has been tweeting passive-aggressively about fake family members and gold diggers on social media, but he hasn't spoken to me directly. He and anyone who backs his and Dad's story have been blocked by me. I'm concentrating on getting settled in our new house with Mike and attempting to put all of this turmoil behind us right now. But I'll give you another update if anything important occurs. Update 3. I have finally found a solution that makes me feel at peace, so this will be my last update. I've decided to stop communicating with my dad and his side of the family entirely in light of the turmoil and disclosures of the last few months. It has been a wild ride for the last 3 months. As I indicated in my previous post, Dad did attempt to challenge the transfer of the lake house. He launched a lawsuit, arguing that he ought to have some influence on my grandfather's property choices, because he is my father. After my grandfather produced copious records attesting to his mental capacity and his explicit desire to transfer the land to Mike and me, his attorney finally abandoned the case. When Dad lost the court battle, his response was explosive. When he arrived at my place of employment, he created such a commotion that my employer had to bar him from the building. He yelled that I had stolen his retirement dream, implying that he and Aaron had intended to use the lake house as a fishing hideaway. Our restraining order documentation now includes the security footage of his outburst. Even more information about Dad's actions over the years was made public during Lara's divorce procedures. She discovered emails in which he and Aaron would purposefully schedule family get-togethers to clash with my crucial dates. They would purposefully plan events for when they knew I had obligations, then use my absence to portray me as the heartless relative. Spreadsheets were actually used to keep track of my schedule in order to generate these conflicts. The most startling revelation was found in Lara's divorce documents. It turns out that Dad had been putting money aside in a different account for years, money that was meant to be for Aaron and me. But according to the account statements, every cent was used on Aaron's schooling, vehicle, and now his wedding prior to Dad leaving. When Lara questioned this, Dad said my mom and grandfather could support me, so I didn't need the money. Aaron is also not managing the situation properly. It appears that his biological father's involvement backfired since following the wedding. He stopped answering Aaron's calls. Aaron has been attempting to get back in touch with his father, but he is too busy with the divorce and litigation to give him any attention. Aaron has been going on lengthy social media tirades about how I destroyed his family by stealing his future lake house and turning Lara against Dad. Through all of this, my grandfather, may he be blessed, has been a tremendous source of support. It has been touching to watch him and Mike connect over home renovation tasks as they work on remodeling portions of the lake house. This year, my mom, stepdad, grandfather, and a few close friends who supported us will be the only ones attending our first Christmas celebration there. Lara contacted me last week to inform me that, following the completion of the divorce, she would be relocating to a different state. She thanked me for giving her the confidence to go and apologize once more for not realizing Dad's manipulation sooner. Even though we're not close, I admire her for finally confronting Dad's actions. The extended family is mainly divided into two groups: those who have seen through Dad's lies and those who still believe them. It seems quite liberating to have lost contact with some relatives. They are the only family I need, and the people that matter have stayed. I'm getting used to living in a lake house with Mike. I occasionally catch myself feeling depressed about Dad's situation. But then I recall all the spreadsheets, the prearranged arguments, the deception, and the manipulation. When he decided Aaron was the only child worth his time and effort, I lost him years ago. So I know I'm not losing a parent. In times of self-doubt, your messages and remarks enabled me to maintain my position. Walking away from toxic family members, including parents, might be the healthiest course of action. Sometimes the hardest option is the correct one.